Hello and welcome to Crowd Supply's Teardown Sessions. I'm Helen Leigh and I'm going to be your host today. I'm going to be talking to one of my favorite hardware hackers, the delightful Timon, or Timonsku, as some of you might know him from the internet. But before I bring on Timon, I'm going to show you a few things that we've been up to here at Crowd Supply and give you the details of our very first exciting hardware giveaway. So without further ado, let's take a look. Ooh, let's put single. There we are, that's more like it. We've got this one closing in the next 4 days. We've got Slime VR Body Tracker, which has gone pretty much gangbusters, which is an open source full body tracker for virtual reality. So that's ending in 4 days. We've got new ATEC 1001, which is a pre-selector for SDRs. That's just launched. That's probably going to be very popular, so get on that quick. Another new launch, we've got Chavi, which is an ESP32 based fingerprint sensor with NFC. So that's just launched last night. So I'm going to check out their work and support them. And finally from Crowd Supply, we've got still 19 days left in this campaign, but in case you haven't heard of it, we're hosting Home Assistant's first original hardware campaign, which we're very excited about. So if you are into home automation, but you don't want the security and privacy concerns, you'd rather an intranet of things, you should check out the Home Assistant Amber. Now, that's it from Crowd Supply. One last thing that I wanted to tell you is we wanted to give a big thank you to everybody who entered the Hello FPGA Summer giveaway, which has now ended. We had 380 entries and 30 winners from across 13 countries. So those are all on their way to some very happy hardware hackers as we speak. And I want to give a massive shout out to Microchip for making that giveaway possible. So thank you for giving us all those lovely Hello FPGAs, which are making their merry way around the world. All right, so that's the little roundup. Let's remove you. Oh, should be solo. Sorry, Timon's coming in there in the background. So before we bring Timon on, I'm going to tell you about this. We've got a box of exciting mystery hardware here that I'm going to give away today during this stream. It's full of some fun things to play with and also some swag as well. And it all comes in this limited edition Teardown 2019 lunchbox. Teardown is our festival of hardware hacking, which normally happens every year, but of course there's been some kind of pandemic, so we've not been able to do that. So at some point during the stream, I've written down a timestamp on a piece of paper, and if you comment closest to the timestamp, I will give away, you will get this box of goodies shipped to you anywhere in the world. If we're allowed to ship it to you, it will get there. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to say is please do comment because it helps us feel less alone, less like we're talking into our webcams. And I know that Timon's got a huge wealth of experience to share on product design, manufacturing, all of these kind of things. So at the time, please just ask us lots of questions, give us comments, make us feel loved, please. It's lovely. And also don't forget, I always forget to say this, but please don't forget to like and subscribe. We are doing these regularly now, and there will be giveaways and lots more chats with fun engineers. Anyway, without further ado, let me bring on the delightful, let me just switch views. Here we go. Hello, Timon. We had sneak preview of you earlier, sorry. Let me just put your name badge on there and unmute you because I've forgotten to do that. Hello, nice to see you. How are you doing?
Likewise. I'm doing pretty good, given the circumstances.
Yes.
A little bit stressed because I'm like in the last few steps of launching Piunora, but it's going okay. And
yeah. You're doing really well considering the circumstances. But before we launch into all of that, do you want to introduce yourself for the people who don't know you already?
So I started doing like more product design stuff a couple years ago. Got more known by doing the Damn Linux tablet, DLT for short, for the Hackaday Prize in 2019.
Yeah.
Which was the idea for like a modular mobile computing platform. And yeah, ever since I've been like diving my toes into like product design, manufacturing, and yeah, hardware hackery in general. And been posting about that on Twitter and Hackaday.
Yep, and you can find Timon on all sorts of platforms, including Twitter with and Hackaday and GitHub, using the handle underneath him, Timonsku. So
I think on Hackaday I'm still Professor Fartsparkles, but yeah, I'm mostly
yes, you
writing on
are.
Twitter.
You're right. I forgot about that prior yeah, I remember you. All right. Well, before we get started, I wanted to see who's with us. All right, Philippe Kadik saying it's a cool device, which I'm assuming is referring to the Piunora, which absolutely it is. We've got the review suite here saying hello. Thank you for joining us. We've got Deshipu, good evening. So I'm assuming you're on CET or somewhere else. CEST at the moment, isn't it? So good evening to you. It's good afternoon for me. Good evening for you as well, isn't it? You're in Germany. Then Scott Shawcraft has turned up. Hello, nice to see you, Scott. Scott's the CircuitPython lead and does all sorts of really awesome things for Adafruit. We have got a question here from Alex, who has said, why Box is 2019? Well, that's because that's the last time that we had a teardown, because 2020 there was some kind of pandemic apparently. Yeah, and the same this year. So there will be a teardown in 2022. Details to come on that. Well, hopefully there'll be one if there's not another new one. We've also got Emily, who's here. Hello, Emily. Really nice to see you. Thanks for coming by. It's been a minute. And then also Geekmon Projects. Hello. Really nice to see you. God, we've got a pretty full crowd of really nice people here as well. Yeah, all right. So let's get started. Thank you for everybody for saying hi. Let's get started. So, Timon, tell us about what's been going on with you since the end of your campaign. So you had a successful campaign on crowd supply, and then and that's what people think of, right? They're like, okay, we get the money, and then what? You know, like there's this whole that's very, very much like the first part, right? So you get the prototype and you get the funding, and then there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens in the middle. So I was hoping that you'd give us some insights onto what that process looks like for you.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think my prototype was, I think they did that in December last year. And really shortly after, got in touch with Crowd Supply about a campaign. And, as things goes, I wanted to launch way sooner, but it's actually quite a lot of paperwork and things to get done until you I had to found a company and all that kind of stuff. And maybe as I go along, I could maybe show the prototypes and stuff that I made. So this was like the first Piunora, which didn't have much silk screen at all on it. Just the basics, but it didn't really change all that much. So since this revision, like feature-wise, I would say it has stayed like 95% the same thing. But still, it was a ton of work to get it from. I did this in like essentially 4 days of work was this to design that and build it, and which sounds like to some people maybe like a fast time, but it's like. What one always doesn't see is it's like this 90% feature state, it's there, and then the last perceived 10% at that point, they are really, really hard. So I started inquiring about prices and figuring out how much would it cost to make a Piunora, because I kind of need to know that before I launch a campaign. Because I can't ask for like a specific amount of money, and then it turns out it costs way more than that, and then I'm in huge debt. That's not going to work out. And that's been really difficult because the chip shortage was already starting at that point in like February, March. Things were already kind of starting to ramp up in prices. Stock was kind of getting, not a lot less, which was a bit disconcerting, and it was very hard to anticipate that for the campaign.
How did you allow for that? Did you add a percentage? Because I know that a lot of people have been suffering from scalping. Like the Glasgow campaign, for example, Peter Esden's been complaining about not being able to get hold of stuff. But
products like the Glasgow are even
compare
worse affected by this because they have very more specialty components like the FPGA they have on the Glasgow.
Yeah.
And these have been just you only have one company that makes that, and if that company doesn't have that anymore, then well, you have a problem. I was kind of lucky with Piunora because it uses a lot of more generic components that a lot of manufacturers produce. So I was looking at, potential substitutes. So some things I could find drop-in replacements that have similar pricing. So I was kind of gauging for a price range of how much it could cost me if I, okay, if that old stuff goes out of stock, I still have that option. And maybe then if that goes out of stock, I have that other one in stock again. I was hoping that, the manufacturers would at least have some stock or some alternative part. And that's kind of how it ended up. But so it's always good to have a margin there. Don't calculate pricing for that too tightly. Some people want to always hit the lowest price points because we're kind of used to very cheap products sometimes from mass manufacturers, and that's not really something you can do as a small single person company. You can't compete with that, so you shouldn't try to compete with that. I would say try to find your value, and your value is not the lowest price, but something that hits a certain niche that well and can make a good product for these people. And that's kind of your value, I would say.
I agree.
So and then I think March I started producing media, photos, video stuff, thinking about how I want to present Piunora, because it's a product that needs a lot of communication. Because so for those who don't know what Piunora is, I'm just keep talking about it, but it's a carrier board. This is how it ended up looking for the Compute Module 4. And the Compute Module 4, the Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4, is essentially a Raspberry Pi 4 without connectors. It's just the processor, some RAM, and some other power supply circuitry, the bare minimum of computing power. And you can then design a board like this that makes that breaks out all of the connections that you do want to use, and kind of lets you make your own Raspberry Pi essentially. Of course, nowhere near as cheap because you're not the manufacturer of it, but you can make some very interesting things with that. And let me show you how a compute module looks like. It's this little tiny green rectangle.
Nice.
And
you got some good autofocus on that webcam.
Yeah, I'm quite happy with it. And that then goes in here like that. I haven't fully put it in. Right, so that pops in here. And yeah, it's in an Arduino form factor. I wanted to, I got that idea essentially initially from Scott, who was also in chat.
Nice.
After some stream, he just dropped a comment in some chat that somebody just should make a breakout that takes the Metro or Arduino Uno form factor, and that idea kind of stuck with me. And I thought hey, that's not so hard to do. And as I started doing that, I got so many ideas of what it could be, and yeah, I got really excited about that. And I always wanted a product that makes electronics prototyping more. Linux and electronics prototyping, merging these two things in a more accessible way, because I think the Pi in itself is not very well suited for that. It's just this unlabeled 40-pin header, and just figuring out where to connect things is such a cumbersome task.
It is a cumbersome task. I mean, it's great for if you're doing browser-based computing or
if you're a software person.
If you're wiring things up, it's always
just if you've forgotten how it looks it's just this huge thing, and then you start looking at a website and start counting pins down. Okay, pick 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then you miscounted and connected the wrong thing, and then smokes comes out. And
I've done that so many times.
It's a UX problem at the end of the day. It's not that I have I have one feature that's not on the normal Pi, but it's essentially mostly the Pi, but reconfigured in a way that's just way more user-friendly for someone who does electronics. So we have a little STEMMA QT connector here. the little white thing here, which I don't know if you know that it's like a very quick way to attach I2C sensors and all that sort of stuff. Adafruit and SmartPhone have tons of modules there. So like solder free, just plug in the sensor, ready to go. You have all the drivers available in Python through Blinker, which is like a compatibility layer for CircuitPython. So you can just, have CircuitPython code from like your normal microcontroller. You can just copy paste that essentially on here and it will just work, which is really cool. And Scott actually has started working on a bare metal port for the Raspberry Pi 4 processor, which is super exciting. And he streams later over at Adafruit, I think in 2 hours or so.
I believe so. No, pipe up in the comments when your stream is and where it is, Scott, and I'll bring it up so we can.
And I think that's another really cool thing. Like imagine the bare processor power of that thing just for CircuitPython. That's really cool, like without a Linux and everything.
Yeah, really cool.
So one thing that the has have, sorry.
No, cool.
It has an M2 connector on the bottom. And so that you can attach a PCI Express SSD to that, or if you're a bit adventurous, I haven't advertised it as a fully supported feature, but it has a optional footprint here for a SIM card connector, and you can actually attach LTE modems to this as well, which also I think is a cool use case for that. And now they have some people doing some stuff with that. Other than that, camera, USB, HDMI, and one special kind of feature that I try to build towards is you have a little connector at the bottom here, if that focuses. Now that focus doesn't work.
Yeah.
So here where my thumb is, and you can switch between USB host and USB device mode. So it will either switch between that connector or that connector, and in USB device mode, this can act as a mass storage device or as a virtual Ethernet device. And you can just, because this uses a lot less power than a normal Pi, you can just hook that up to your computer directly with a USB cable and work with it like you work with a normal microcontroller. You don't have to hook it up to a USB power supply and then an Ethernet connector, find out what the IP address in the network is, and then do the whole SSH thing, and like things that I think many people who normally work with microcontrollers, who are more electronic savvy, don't necessarily are comfortable with, I would say. And even if you are, I am very comfortable with that, but it's so annoying every time. Like it's always like this 10-15 minute setup to get a Pi running if you're quick. And I want to get that down. I want to have like a rapid prototyping platform available. And that's kind of where I geared the whole feature set towards.
That's a really fantastic tour of your device there. Thanks for that. I'd like to hear a little bit more. So after you've designed it,
the campaign.
You've done the campaign. I'd like to hear a bit more about what happens afterwards as well.
Yes. So the prelude, that's what was going on. That's why I made the campaign. And after that was done, I was actually a bit burned out because it was so much work to make a campaign.
It is a lot of work. Yeah.
I had to power through a bit to like get manufacturing going. So the first thing I did was, or I did that actually while the campaign was running, is contact my manufacturer, which I had talked to way long before the campaign started, because you need.
How did you find them? How did you find your manufacturer?
In this case, was a long-time partner. But just recommendations in this case. But if you don't have someone to recommend a manufacturer to you because you don't have a huge nerd circle, not friend circle, I can recommend for PCBA. You have a lot of websites by now that come to you usually by now, advertise a lot, but don't get deterred by how their website looks. It's usually not a good sign of how their quality is. And find someone if you wants to assemble something. I can very much recommend to go to a place that specializes in the assembly and is not like many manufacturers these days started out as PCB houses, so they made PCBs, and then later on offered assembly. The thing is, most of the time they actually don't do that themselves and have partners, so they give out that task to another assembly house, and they're just a broker for you. So, you know, Seed Studio and stuff like that, they do excellent PCBs, but they will give the assembly work out of house usually. And it doesn't mean that they do a bad job, but the communication, you know, you go through multiple channels in that case. You don't directly communicate with the people that actually assemble your device, and that can be problematic.
That's a really good tip.
I would always recommend find someone who's doing the actual assembly, because they can listen to whatever you have to say. You maybe have special requirements, and they can directly implement them, and they don't get lost in translation.
That's great. That's great.
And you can still like have your PCB made by a specific manufacturer. They ship to your PCBA manufacturer, or have them. Most of the time, PCBA houses have partners for PCBs.
So you've got your at this point you've got your final prototype, you've got your manufacturing sorted, you've got your funding in the bank from your campaign,
right.
And then what? How long? So when did your campaign end? Remind me. June?
I think in May, early May. I think it was. Yeah. It started early April and ended early to mid May.
Okay. So, and what stage are you at now? What we're like? We're 5 months in now after you successfully
funded. Not that long.
And like
it feels like
it isn't that long. Like what stage are you? What stage are you at now? 5 months.
So right now I have all of my initial batch that I ordered at manufacturer is assembled. So the whole product exists, and I have actually here some samples from the mass manufacturing. It's
oh wow,
32
that's exciting. 32
Piunoras
samples.
all boxed up.
When did those arrive?
On Monday, actually.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so this week. So about 5 months on, you got your samples from your. That's actually not too shabby.
It's not samples. That's like it's done. Like I had samples. So samples came in about 3 weeks after the campaign ended.
Yeah. But that's something those are your samples of the final run.
Right, yeah. So that's my I don't know, there's probably a specific word for that in English too, but like they just grabbed out of the 1,000 that I made 32 and sent them to me, so I can, do like last quality control check, because I will not receive them here. It's way too much for me to handle. I need to set up a process so they can do quality control themselves. Nice. But it's always good to check assumptions. Sometimes stuff gets still must communicate it, so it's always good to communicate what should be done and then check if you have communicated correctly.
So brief.
That's what's
pause to say that Philippe says that this is the most exciting period when you start production.
That's one way to put it. Yeah.
You'll love it. He's also asked you if you'll release a kicad footprint to help us create shields and participate.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's Arduino compatible in most ways. So I stuck to the typical Arduino Uno pinout. So SPI, UART, analog pinout, power, that's all in the same spots. So I'm pretty sure some templates exist for that already. But if there's anything Piunora specific, I can't think of anything right now. But of course, if some users have feedback, always tell me about it, and I love to help with documentation
or in touch with you
resources.
On Twitter or
on Twitter.
Yeah. Cool. All right, great. And I said a little comment from Scott saying he.
Totally. That's right. Comments sparking to found a company and do a product.
Well, it's the idea is the easy. It's the execution that takes the actual effort. But we'll
no, but it's always the idea needs to spark something, and if you don't have a spark to carry you through all of this, it's really exhausting, really.
It is. And we've also got Deal Monk saying hi, Guy and Guy S's. Guy S's, that's not one I've heard before, but I'll take it. And little heart emoji there from the review suite. Okay. Okay, cool. So on with your story. On with your story. Oh, and don't forget, as we go on, please do ask questions and send us reactions to things that we're saying. And we will be picking a random winner in the next part of the section of this exciting box of hardware. So please do carry on with your questions. So carry on, Timon. Carry on with your story.
So yeah, while the campaign was in preparation, I contacted my manufacturer about making a first production prototype. So like this very early version I hand soldered. But yeah, I wanted to basically check on manufacturability and have them produce a couple more so I can send those out to beta testers. It's always good to have other people try and use new things. You tend to get a little bit blind to certain issues when you're like very deep into a product design. So that was another use of that, prototype production to get more units into the hands of other people. And yeah, I got those a couple weeks after the campaign ended, and I've then sent those out to people that I selected for beta testing, and got some feedback from that. It was good. And in the meantime, I was scrambling to find components because as many know, we have a chip shortage going on, which will still impact people in 2022.
It's true. Well into 2022, we're seeing seeing dates well into. It's no sign of ending anytime soon, and the scalpers are getting worse. Wow.
So I spent it's at this point, when you finish I wasn't finished. I've throughout all of this time, I was still tinkering with small things about how to improve the usability and challenge some assumptions that I made, and think about the whole product again after hearing more about it from people. If I made the right decisions to certain features, it's always a balancing act. Everyone wants always another. Someone wanted Ethernet, someone wanted a longer M2 port. Everyone wants something in your product, and you can't listen to all of them.
That's
and
true.
You have to find out what is your product, and then find the criticism that actually applies to your idea. It doesn't derail it, and some of that was very useful. So from the beta testers, I've got feedback that it was it's not possible to insert the module the wrong way. It's mechanically not possible. It's still they were unsure how and what orientation you should put this in, which is very fair because it seems like you can mirror it. Even if you look at the connectors, it doesn't. You can see it's a little bit shifted to this side, but it's whatever focuses. And so that's it's ambiguous. Should I put this way or this way? And it looks a bit fragile and everything. So they kind of lack the confidence maybe on just putting it in there. So I added a little outline here so that you can visually check as well. Are you in the correct or wrong orientation, because it will just go over the outline. So you can see that here. And things like that, and the little arrow that maps to the little. It's probably hard to see, but the antenna has also this kind of arrow shape. So trying to find more visual aids to guide the user on how to insert it. It's small things like that take time, but they're very useful.
They're really useful. Yeah, absolutely. And getting that kind of feedback from beta testers is vital. All right, I've got a burning question here from Folknology, which is going to be a can of worms. Who said, did you get it CE tested? I see the logo. Now, I got to say that aside from shipping, which we do cover here, we do all the shipping and logistics at Crowd Supply for our campaigns through Mauser. But apart from the shipping questions, I would say our number one asked question from hardware creators is CE. How? It's really confusing. What was your approach? Tell us what you did.
So it's a difficult one. most companies will not give you a straight answer to that question because
It's
a lot of
true.
companies don't do it correctly. And you can get away with that with these kind of products because nobody really cares about these kind of products because they're not meant for a mass market. And there's little danger there. But Mauser is mandating, so Mauser is owns crowd supply, and they are mandating that products that go to Europe need to be CE compliant.
Yeah.
And what that means is completely up to you, which makes it even worse. So you have to first find out what. So there are a bunch of CE directives, they are called. And the most known one probably is ROS. That's for dangerous and hazardous materials. And is usually also the easiest to comply to because nearly all of parts nowadays, there are exceptions, gotta watch out for that, but most parts, most manufacturing processes are ROS compliant these days. So by default, you kind of get ROS, unless you get unlucky somewhere, but that's quite easy to comply to. And then there is EMC testing, which most electronics products technically fall into. There are some ways to say you don't have to comply to that. That depends on who is going to use your product. But that is also not easy to navigate. So if you want to be very sure, you would need to do EMC compliance testing. And CE only mandates that you test. They don't tell you how to test, and they only give you like values to test for. So you're completely free to do that however you want. There's not like an official CE testing house in Europe or something that would do that. You are completely in your own there. You could technically test at home if you have the knowledge and the tools to do that. But say most people probably don't. It's actually quite intricate setup to do EMC testing. EMC is for electromagnetic compatibility. So making sure your product doesn't radiate something, in the spectrum and fucks with your Wi-Fi. You don't want that. That's what EMC directive is for. And yeah, that's like the minimum most products have to test to. If you have like a Wi-Fi module on there, you will have to also test for the red directive, which is for all intentional radiators. EMC is for unintentional radiation. And it's up to you to decide if your product falls into a directive or not. Then there's a low voltage directive, which is for, it's kind of comical because it's for voltages higher than 75 volts up to 1000 volts. That's low voltage for CE. And then there's like high voltage for like several kilovolts. So that's usually not a concern for most products, probably in this like DevBoard world.
So I think the CE seems quite intimidating for a lot of first-time creators, and like you've just rattled off a whole list of things. Like it might sound complicated to people who haven't done it before. How much time do you think you actually spent getting your CE certification? And what of it did you do yourself?
So I don't do anything myself. It depends again on your product. Sometimes you can argue so in my case, it's a bit difficult to say what my standard use case is. That's what you have to test for. By default, Piunora is not an active device. It's mostly mechanical breakout. If you attach power to this, there are ICs on this board, but they are not powered. It is a completely user-defined application. You can plug in whatever you want on here, and that will change its behavior and how the components on there react. So in my case, the active component is the compute module. I don't sell the compute module with Piunora. That is a CE certified component. So you can sometimes go from that. Similar with wireless modules, sometimes they have some sort of pre-certification that can make things easier.
It's a whole can of worms, and I would just say, like, to those of you out there who are considering creating a product, that it is a can of worms, but it's not necessarily as awful as you think it is. So So Philippe is saying if you're not selling from European Union, CE is not an issue, but I don't necessarily think that's correct because we are pushing, we're sending, like Mesa is refusing to send, if you're selling if you're not selling to the European Union, perhaps, is that what? Yeah, so if you're not selling to the European Union, you don't need CE. It's more like CE is not an issue if you're not selling to the European Union.
It's up to the distributor to take care of that. So
it is.
I would not,
because Mesa is our distributor, or your distributor, I should say. They're quite a large company and they take compliance seriously. Whereas someone selling something on the side somewhere might not be as compliant, but Mesa does take this kind of stuff quite seriously. But yeah, if you're selling it to the European Union, you do need CE certification. But it's not as bad as you might think. It's not as bad as you might think. People do it.
The bad side is you have to read into it. You have to get up to speed. That takes a considerable amount of time. You can do that way before a campaign starts. I was not under the assumption that I have to do certain things. That kind of blindsided me. Now I know. But yeah, compliance takes up a lot of time from if you sell stuff, and keep that in mind. It's a time effort, and maybe also keep in mind the costs of maybe testing. They can be quite high sometimes, but always get quotes from multiple manufacturers. In China, this is way cheaper usually than in US or European testing labs.
True.
And they have a lot of experience doing testing very quickly, so that if you're already producing in China like I do, that might be a good option for you. If you produce in America, maybe the test lab around the corner is good.
Yeah, that's a good idea. So thank you for telling us about your thoughts on CE, and telling us where you are in the Piunora product cycle campaign. I was first of all, the timestamp has passed 12:35. So Philippe, you were the closest commenter to 12:35. In fact, 12:35, you commented on the dot. So you have won this box of goodies, which includes, I can show you now, we've got an Onion Omega 2, which is a single board computer by the lovely folks at Onion, obviously. So we've got an Onion Omega 2. We've got an RFID expansion, a ADC expansion, and a servo expansion for the Onion 2. And we've also got a bunch of swag, including a $10 Osh Park gift card, a laser cut crowd supply mug rester thing, and a bunch of awesome stickers and a Hackster pin as well from our lovely friends over at Hackster. So Philippe, thank you for your comments, and well done on winning this box of hardware, which will come in this lunchbox. So if you send us a DM on Twitter with your address, we'll get that sent out to you next week. Oh yeah, winner, hooray. So we've got through, back to Timon, we've got through, oh, here we are, look. So we've got Phil Monk saying, oh, aren't there FCC regulations instead in the USA? Yes, there are, or UL. So each place that you sell into will have their own, will have their own regulatory bodies. But CE is one who they are increasingly enforcing it. Also, Philippe says, lol, too cool, thanks. You're very welcome. So just send us your address, remember, send us your address or I can't get that to you. I would really, oh look, they already have an Onion one. So you've got an Onion Omega 2. We've got loads of expansion goodies in here for you as well. So that's great. I'm glad to hear that that's going to be useful for you. Timon, okay, so we've heard about the Piunora, we've heard about your trials. Is there anything else you wanted to tell us about the story of the Piunora, or can we have a look and see some of the fun, exciting prototypes of things that you've been working on, or your favorite tools?
I mean, I guess I can finish up with one thing. You make your electronics product, but usually there's some other small things that I would encourage if you plan to produce something, keep that in mind. So I decided for a paper packaging for
Cute.
Piunora. So I
I love your
contacted the
logo. It's really
manufacturer.
cute.
Yeah,
Show the
thank you. That
logo.
was designed
It's so
by
cute.
Bleep.
Oh, really? Oh, they are such a great artist.
And you can see my
If you're
camera
not,
is
yeah,
mirrored, but yeah.
if you aren't following Bleep Track and you're into hacker art, go and smash that follow button on like the main thing is Twitter, is that right? Like yeah, Bleep Track.
Probably.
Yeah, they do all sorts of really. They did the art for the last CCC, the Refreshing Memories. Was it not Refreshing Memories for?
Sure. And she always makes the generators.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the font generator. Yeah, they did that. That was super cool for the last CCC. I love that where all the letters kind of fell down. CCC, for those that don't know it, CCC is the Chaos Computing Club, and they run an annual event called Congress, which is that where we first met, Timon?
Chaos Communication Camp, 2019.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Camp was the first time. So they have two events. They have a winter event, which is held in I never pronounced this right, but Leipzig. Or is it Leipzig? Leipzig or Leipzig?
Leipzig.
Oh, I did a terrible job of both parts of that. So sorry. It's near Berlin. Yes, it's like an hour.
Oh, right. Camp is not in Leipzig. That is
no.
Some weird town.
The Congress is in. The
Congress
is in,
Leipzig,
which is the annual nerd. It's like the DEF CON of Europe, except much cooler. Yeah. And then we also have a summer camp, which is every 4 years called CCC Camp. So that's what we're talking about. Just slinging acronyms around with no explanation. That's not how we roll here. So yeah, CCC. That's anyway. Sidetrack. I got sidetracked by your lovely art by Bleep Track. Carry on with your box.
Right. So you also need a sticker. You have to, if you do CE declaration, you need somewhere on your product CE mark. It's fine to put that on the packaging. It doesn't have to be on the PCB if you don't want that, like me. But yeah, little things to keep in mind. And there's like the manufacturing code for stocking at Mauser, for example, or any other distributor will want something like that. And you have to coordinate all of these things unless you plan on doing. You only make a few high cost products, that's fine. But if you make thousands, that's not going to work out. You don't want to do this yourself. I don't know. And then it's about packaging. So then there's like a little bag with the accessories, screws, rubber feet. You will get a cute little sticker. I mean, it is a very optional thing. You don't have to do these things, but yeah.
Oh my gosh, I love that one. I like the
holographic, blinky.
Yeah.
And yeah, all of that stuff needs to be thought about, communicated. You need to find a manufacturer that makes a stop for you, makes a sticker for you, makes all of that for you, package it for you. Which sometimes the PCBA manufacturer can do that for you, can be the place that packages everything for you. Logistics, really. And that has taken up, 6 months at least. And product design was only 2 to 3 months, I would say, in total. So that's something you need to consider. It's not just, if you decide to sell something, it's not just cool hacking PCB design. There's a lot of business related and logistics related things that really are a different job at the end of the day. You will be doing several different jobs throughout that journey. And that needs to be kept in mind because that can frustrate you if you didn't plan on doing all of that.
It's true. Yeah, and there are people who can do these things for you, but you still need to be able to, it's a learning experience, but
you need to communicate. You can do it yourself. Then you don't have to communicate, but then you have to do it yourself. But even if you pay someone, you need to tell them what they should do. And that can still be a lot of work. Especially if there's a language barrier.
Agreed. So Fognology says cute box. I firmly agree. It's true. And then Philippe says, wow, I love the sticker. Everybody loves a bit of a holographic sticker. In the box, I think I put some holographic crowd supply stickers, I think, are in this box, if I remember correctly. But yeah, we all love a bit of a holographic sticker, don't we? You've got some lovely product design. You've got some lovely product design there. Oh, and Leon's just popped into the chat as well. Leon Alavi says hello from Plovdiv, Bulgaria. Hi, Leon. Nice to see you. Nice to see you. All right. So that's an amazing story, and you've given us lots of great knowledge about all the different things that go into not just creating the product in the first place, that prototype, but also all of the bits and bobs that go along with it, which is many and varied, and actually takes up a lot more time than the actual product design itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. So I'd like to move on to what you're up to next or now. Are you taking a break? Are there more things on your desk? Like, what are the things that have been tickling your fancy recently?
Yeah, so like I still, I'm at the finishing line for Piunora. What still needs to be done. I've been working on finishing documentation, need to bring my website up to speed. It's not online actually yet. I've been putting that aside because it's kind of stopping. Like if I didn't work on stuff, things wouldn't progress, so I've had to keep up with that. Currently, I'm doing last changes to the electrical tester for Piunora. So they have everything manufactured, optical testing, mechanical testing, that's all been done. But just as a last measure, some electrical testing is also happening to test like LEDs, that's the ADC function, all of that. Once I have that done, sometimes over the next week, they will do testing. And then I have to prepare shipment. So I have to talk to DHL about import paperwork to the US. And then get everything, packaged up according to Mother specification. Every distributor has their, preferred way of how things should be arranged, how they should be packaged, what should be included in terms of information. That is very important because they receive thousands of packages every day. Or every week, I'm not sure, but lots, and they need to be able to sort through that very quickly. So that's like the last things that I need to do, apart from the soft tasks like documentation, some more software things that I want to get ready for people to use and these kind of things. And once I have that done, then I'm like done.
You're free.
You're looking forward to that because it's as only one person doing it, that is a lot of responsibility for like a whole year. And I'll be looking forward to seeing people use it, hopefully, and have fun with it and do cool things with it. And me not doing anything for a while at least. I do have product ideas for the future, of course.
What kind of genre of thing? Are we going to stick with pie boards or what?
Sure.
Can you give us some little teasers of some of your ideas? Maybe someone will snipe you. Maybe.
I have enough at the moment to.
Tell us some ideas on your desk then.
A lot of stuff that I worked on in the past that I might continue. So I did the tablet thing in 2019. I'm thinking of maybe doing like a precursor thing for that. That's like maybe not full tablet, but something in direction that's at least hits many of the points that I actually wanted to solve with that. And that might include Pi again.
Those of you,
I don't mean Bunny's precursor, just as a...
as a precursor. I see.
Similar idea. He just flat out called it a precursor to his device.
I misunderstood you.
Just mean the general. So maybe in that direction, it's a device with a screen, maybe battery, very modular, and possibly a Pi motherboard. So maybe I stay with that. But I also worked with the Jetson Nano in the past. I was also thinking maybe I could do another version of Piunora that maybe solves some other niches that want a similar small form factor, but really want Ethernet or 2 camera ports. I don't know. That's definitely something I've been considering, but I think maybe I need something else for a while. I don't need Piunora 2 directly after.
Have a nice little break. Do something silly. Next thing should be a silly hack.
Yeah, I think I will probably go with something very different than
Yeah.
Piunora. I've also been thinking about making a tool, essentially. Can't talk too much about that, but yeah, a tool that will help people with electronics development that I would really like for myself. And I think other people would enjoy that too. But
That's
that it
all
would
the fun
be
things.
a large engineering effort, and I'm not sure if I can bring that effort just yet. But that's something on my mind. I've been working on a maker-friendly USB hub in the past. That was also like something that was spinning around. Like,
what kind of features would a maker-friendly USB hub have?
Lots of power output. So it wouldn't be very USB compliant. Let's put it that way. But I've always been like, with USB-C, especially now, I kind of want to have a USB-C hub. Like that's not just USB-C in and then A out, but USB-C all the way. Or choosable, like mixed between USB-C and A. It would be stackable, so you can put several of them on top of each other without an extra cable, so it would like pass through the USB connection. So people that work with microcontrollers like me, sometimes I need a lot of USB ports at once, and yeah, I think that would be a cool feature. Or just attach, I don't know, USB debugger to the last port or something. But yeah, lots of power through, like so you can have 3 amps on each port. And no fuses in between. It's like so some people that would be a bad thing to have. For makers, I think that is a good thing to have because they like to draw. Sometimes a little bit too much power. Like they know what you're doing. Hopefully,
maybe.
But yeah, kind of a product that caters to the hackers. And that is a good USB hub. I'm always frustrated with USB hubs. They often don't work, and I want a USB 2 hub. Because USB 3 hubs are a source of issues for this microcontrollery world that I operate in. I don't actually need high-speed devices. I don't need USB 3 ever with anything that I do, except for like my daily computing tasks, like, I don't know, attaching a USB stick or something, or like the capture device right now. But that's not what I develop with or what I tinker with. So yeah, most of my products usually solve a frustration that I have myself. And I look if I'm, maybe other people have the same frustrations. And then if they do, then that might become a product. That's usually how it goes for me.
Absolutely. All right, we've got a couple of comments here. We've got one from Bruce Seagal saying, nice, I have one coming in whenever. Thanks. Well, he said that when you were talking about the Piunora, so I'm assuming he's a backer of the Piunora. And he also says, I like having lots of small things on order, so stuff keeps arriving.
Always something new to
great strategy. It's a great strategy. We've got a little idea that's been thrown out into the internet by Philippe saying he'd like to see a foldable display phone with CM4. I've been looking at those foldable phones. I'm quite tempted by one. They look fun, to do a foldable display phone.
Sure. I mean, generally, it's working with tech that the industry is like the leading edge at the moment. Usually not a great idea because you probably don't get that.
We need to wait for a little bit. We need to wait for a little bit before we have a maker-friendly foldable display. But I for one cannot wait for that day. It will eventually come down into the makersphere. We will get hackable foldable displays pretty soon, I think. So that's quite exciting. Bruce is saying that tools are nice. They are. It's true. We have no argument here. And also saying that he is agreeing with you, saying that Chew is fine for connecting all of those embedded micros. It's true. It's absolutely true. So I think there's some interest in your hub ideas there. That's quite fun. All right, we're coming quite close to the end of our hours. We've got about 5 minutes left together. Aside from, and I was wondering if you might tell me your favorite tool on your workbench, because I'd like to see. Do you have favorites? Because everybody's got favorites, right? I've got favorites.
I think it's my microscope, to be honest.
Ooh. Which one have you got? Oh wow, that's a proper one.
Stereo microscope with HDMI camera port.
Wow.
could actually show that, but it's a microscope. You have seen that.
We've seen microscopes, yeah.
It's such a useful tool. Like
what do you use it for? I've got a microscope on my bench, but to be honest, I don't really use it that often. I never get it down off of its little perch.
So I mean, I've always set it up. It's directly been next to my soldering station. I do all of my soldering on my microscope.
Oh, do you? Really?
And even through all my soldering, I do through the microscope because it's so useful to see up close how the solder is flowing, how it's reacting. And it's often not necessarily about not being able to see something, but more being able to observe what the solder is doing. And it improves your soldering just by being able to see things better. There's always a light there, there's always good soldering conditions there. And if you do SMD work, especially fine pitch connectors like on Piunora, that's like 0.4 millimeter, you really, you can't at that distance discern the pins really. It's 100 pins on each edge. And for that stuff, you definitely need a good stereo microscope. It's about seeing things and seeing what's happening down there in the microscopic world. Or not microscopic, it's on that tiny level, and it improved my soldering so much just by being able to see things clearly. I use it really any day.
Fearless says, I agree with that for SMD at least, but I'm older than Timon. But yeah, I have seen solder, and then we've got here we are. Philippe says a microscope is a must for post 50 years makers. Well,
even if you have perfect eyesight, really, don't be. So a lot of people feel like, it's cheating to use a microscope, or should only need it if you have bad eyes or something. That's not true. It's really, no matter how big things are, it's great to see things up close and improve your work. Really, it's even if you're 20 years old.
Maybe I'll get my microscope on back down and put it on my workbench and make it a part of my electronics area more frequently. You've convinced me. You've convinced me. I have actually seen solder melt. It's Adam Coombs, I think. He does lots of electron microscopy.
Oh yeah.
Microscopy. And actually on my first date with my husband, he showed us how solder melts under an electron microscope, which was a really interesting thing to say. Yeah, that was after SuperCon in 2018. I would want to say there. 2017. I think SuperCon. Is that what T-shirt are you wearing? Is it 2018?
Oh no, that's 2019.
That's 2019. All right, so it's the year before that, so 2018. Yeah, I recognized it. I enjoyed that T-shirt, the Hackaday SuperCon T-shirt. In fact, I've got a matching mug, and I drank my coffee out of it this morning. I was like,
nice. I love that mug also.
Yeah, they have such great graphic design, Hackaday do. So,
absolutely.
So we've got here. So Geek Mom Project says that if someone could invent something to make my hands steadier, that would be a big help too. Yeah, I don't know what to suggest with the steady hands.
I mean, one thing I know is like it's always good to have your palm rested somewhere. Yeah. So like, a lot of times people tend to hold their arm and the hand in the air when they're soldering. So have that rested and only
everywhere.
Modify the position like that with your fingers just, and then just have your palm always resting helps. If you have shaky hands.
I tend to tripod.
Oh yeah, that's also pretty good idea.
I hold my soldering iron like this, and then I'll rest and I'll use these two fingers to steady myself, particularly when I'm doing finer work. So I'll make a little tripod with my soldering on. I've also got I'll go to this one first. So in Geekman Project, a really short distance from fingers to solder to. That's true.
A small soldering iron can help. I have a really small one.
I've got a really small soldering iron too. I tell you what, I love a tiny soldering iron. I love tiny tools in general, to be honest, but I love a small soldering iron. So like the little Wello ones, they were the first time I tried a lightweight soldering iron was just an absolute revelation for me. And those giant big things have just not been part of my electronics life since then.
Yeah, I can kind of see.
Yeah, see? Oh my gosh, that's a gorgeous one. What is that one?
That is an Ersa Icon Nano. There's also Pico, which is not ESD safe, but cheaper.
I've not used that one.
But yeah, it's like the soldering station in itself is like this very small cubey thing, and they have a very small tool.
I've got I've just got an ordinary Hacko at the moment, but even that's quite small. But I've been thinking about going back to a Weller because they're soldering. I
think they also have some microchips.
Are smaller. I prefer those. And we've also got some comments here saying, so Metcal does for that for me. I don't know what Metcal is.
They are an American brand. They don't sell in Europe, but they have some very tiny tools as well, as far as I know.
I see. I'm not really familiar with that. I live here in the US now, but I'm not really familiar with the tools here yet. And Jason, hello Jason, nice to see you. Jason says wine helps with that too. I'm not sure if
whatever works.
Whatever works for you, man. I've been known to have a glass of wine before doing a soldering session too. It makes you feel good, even maybe it makes the mistakes feel less important. Yes, so great. I've enjoyed hearing about your soldering iron and your microscope. Both great tools, both great tool tips. We should head off soon. It's the end of the hour. We've been chatting for an hour already. Is there anything else you want to share with the good people of the internet before we head out?
No, I don't think so. But buy Piunora when it's out. You can actually still pre-order it.
You can.
And I'd love to see your projects. That would really make my day.
Yay.
See people do
exciting.
Something with it.
All this work that's gone into it, and I'm really excited to see what people start doing with it. I really do think it's going to be a benchtop tool for me, just because I do like the power of the Pi, but I really hate wiring things to the Pi. All right. Well, thank you so much for spending an hour with us and dispersing all of your amazing maker and manufacturer knowledge. It's been really, really great to hear your journey and to hear all of the things that you've had to deal with over the course of both the lead up to the campaign and the post-campaign stuff. So I think you've shared some really, really great tips for fellow creators or people who are interested in taking their prototype to the next level and becoming a project. So thank you so much to everybody for joining us and keeping us company. I felt like you've just kept the comments rolling in. I've definitely felt like we weren't just talking into a void. Oh, here we are. So Jason says he can't wait to get his Piunora. Is it Piunora? How do you pronounce it? I always
Piunora.
Piunora. That's nice. So that was fun. And Philippe says that was a cool presentation. Thank you. I'm glad you joined. And you're just saying that because you got your freebies. don't forget to DM us your address, by the way. And from Geekmon Project we've got thank you Timon and Helen. I'm excited to get your Piunora. Oh gosh, I say it differently every time. It's terrible.
That's fine. Whatever you feel.
Yeah, exactly. It's fine. I know you won't get offended. But yeah, thank you so much for everybody for joining us. And we'll catch you again same time next week. So next week there's going to be another hardware with a hardware session. I'm going to be talking to Alicia Gibb, who works in the Open Source Hardware Association and has done all sorts of really exciting things, including co-authoring a book on open hardware. So we're going to be having a chat about the state of open hardware and all sorts of fun things for that next week. So please do join us then. We will have another hardware giveaway as well, which is going to be fun. So there'll be another box, just like this, another lunch box full of treats, different treats, probably some of the same swag. But yeah, lots of different treats. So do please join us next week for that. And thank you very much for joining us. And thank you again, Timon. It was so lovely to see you. Okay, bye now. Of course, bye now.